And we're live. Okay, well, welcome to all of you who have just joined us tonight. I see Tay Wei, Richard Quay, Yao Ngan Singh, Raymond Chan, Elaine Chong, YH Chung, Sharon Po, and Yup. Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. Doing a sound check, mic check. Can everyone hear me loud and crisp and clear? New mic, by the way. So can everyone hear me? Just comment on the section below to say yes or no. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay. So hope everybody is doing well. Welcome, Jane Yap. Yeah, so welcome again for Future Proof, another night where we talk about the future, right? Okay, so just want to welcome everyone who's just coming in. Looks like today's COVID cases is at 847. Somewhat stabilizing, but it's still above 800. So please stay safe, everyone. And those of you in the Klang Valley in Selangor, which is now becoming quite rampant. I think the numbers today at 137. So stay safe. Have your mask on, social distance, and if you don't have to go out, you don't have to leave your house. Stay home, right? And help in pushing the numbers down. Okay. Hi, Wilson Ho and Ka Ping Kong. Welcome. Okay. All right. So, can everybody? Okay, so everybody can hear me. Fantastic. Okay, good. I hope it's coming across much clearer than the microphone from my laptop. Okay. Evening, Sam Quay. Evening. Okay. Now, for those of you who are just joining us, please feel free to share, like, and subscribe. Right. If you feel that this topic might be of interest to your friends, please feel free to tag them, like tag their name, and get them to come on and watch along with you. Right. You can have a watch party on Facebook. So feel free to bring your friends on. Okay. Now, as I go through my slides tonight, have feel free to just throw any questions in the comment section. If there are any questions that you feel you need to ask, that may be unclear, just key that in, right? Just put that into the comment section below. Before I move on, so just an announcement. This weekend we are having our virtual class, right? By none other than our beloved Benny Lee, our technical guru. Now he's been around for a long time, and people in the industry, have many people have heard of Benny and know of Benny. So we're having a class, the TCP class this weekend. Head over. You can see it in the banner. Head over to tcp.equitiestracker.com if you're interested to find out more about what Benny's going to be teaching this weekend, or if you're interested in participating and joining this class. Now, this is it's going to be a virtual class, and so so that we're being socially distant and we're being safe. And hope it's a 2-day class, right? It's Saturday and Sunday. So what's interesting about technical analysis is that not only can you use it for stocks, you can also use it for a myriad of asset classes, right? So if you're into crypto, it is one of the most used tools, right, for your trading. Okay, so yeah, head on to tcp.equitiestracker.com, right, for more info on Benny's class this weekend. Starts on the 24th. It should be pretty good. And if you feel the urge to sign up for that class, you can do it directly from that page. Okay, so yeah, okay, just welcoming. Let's see who else has joined us. So we have Dewey Chan, we have Chuan Chun, we have Daniel, Wali. All right, so Anthony. All right, so welcome, guys. Okay, fantastic. So as more and more people rock up, so tonight we're going to talk about how to be an online guru, right? There are a lot of online gurus around. Let me just share my screen. I'm going to share the Chrome tab. This one. Okay, let's see if that comes through. Okay, there we go. I think everyone can see that. So how do we be an online guru? Let me put this into presentation mode. There you go. Okay. Okay. Welcome, Colin. Welcome, Chin Hock Niao. Thanks for joining us tonight. So, okay. So, um, we're not exactly stuck at home. This is unlike the first MCO where it was very strict. We're not even allowed to leave the house. Right now, we can still. It is not as bad, but still, we want to keep safe. We want to stay safe. We want to keep our family safe. So we try not to leave it as much as we can, right? And the government has announced that all supervisory and managerial levels to work from home, right? Okay, welcome Vicky. Well, welcome Suka. Welcome Kim Seong. Okay, so tonight, what is tonight's topic all about, and how does this relate to our future, right? Okay, so how to be an online guru. Let's go. Now, before I begin, this is not financial advice. So do not take this as financial advice. I am merely just sharing. And I am, we've done research on this, on the topic, and we are sharing and we're having a discussion. And feel free to comment and feel free to ask questions. And this is just a sharing session, right? So if you do decide to make any financial decisions, make sure you consult with your professional financial advisor. Okay, now moving on. Now, who is this guy? His name is Joseph. Meet Joseph, right? Joseph makes over 100,000 USD a year, right? Now he went from being a pizza reject, so he got turned down for a job to do pizza delivery, to becoming an online guru who now makes who made more than $100,000 a year. And how did he do it? So let's tell the story of Joseph, right? So Joseph was, he was trying to make ends meet, right? It wasn't easy. He was trying to get a job as a pizza delivery guy, and what he ended up doing was to teach online, right? He actually used the platform called Udemy, right? Where you and I could actually go on, sign up, and teach a course, right? We can teach a course and charge whatever amount that we want to charge. So what he did was he taught writers how to use this software called Scrivener, right? And so he goes, okay, so how did he go about creating this online course? This is the interesting part, right? So he tried to create an online course that the audience wants, right? And the four deep techniques, right? That he used, called riches in niches. So in level one, he's doing a course for writers, right? So it's pretty high level, right? It's if you want to be a writer, I mean, you can be a journalist, you can be someone who's writing an autobiography, you can be writing, sci-fi, whatever it is. It's a course for writers. Then the level two, he's doing a course on self-publishing for writers, right? Because a lot of there are a lot of people who are trying to be authors, right? So they're writing away, but they don't know where to start. They don't know techniques. They don't know what to do. So then the level three, now you notice it gets deeper, right? He's doing a course on self-publishing software for writers. So how can they self-publish? Because these days, everyone who has a tablet or an iPad, right? You have you can have iBooks, right? You can publish on Amazon, right? Then the level 4, right? He goes into a course on Scrivener. It's a self-publishing software for writers. So you notice he goes from pretty broad, and then he goes into more and more niche, and very 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 specific courses on how to do certain things. And for the audience who's watching here tonight, you will probably, I guess, realize that a lot of our things are actually self-taught these days, right? I mean, self-taught in the sense that, well, hang on, I don't know what to do. What do I do? First thing I do is Google it, right? I either hit Google or I'll hit YouTube to figure out how to do something. So so it's very self-driven. I know, like, whenever my kids will come up to me and go, "Hey, daddy, what's this or what's that?" um, my natural reaction would be to give them the answer, but sometimes I don't know the answer. um, and even if I do know the answer, I'll tell them, "Hey, go and Google it, right? Go and figure it out yourself," because that's essentially how it should be, right? I mean, you have to figure things out yourself. So if you don't know it, well, I'm sure if you Google it, you'll find the answer. So as you can tell, right, over the since the introduction of the internet into our lives, um, it's somewhat changed our behaviors, right? It's changed our behaviors a bit. Where before, if you were stuck, what would you do? Well, you'd have to head to the library. You'd have to, find the right catalog, the right roles, and then go and search for books to then figure out and do your research. But these days, we literally have information and knowledge at our fingertips. Literally, just type it in, right? Or you do a Hey Siri, and then or Okay Google, and oops, sorry, I just activated my Siri.
Hi, I'm Siri. I think you've got the wrong.
Sorry, I just activated my Siri. And just ask your question, right, in natural language. So so back to online learning, right? So when you create a course, so then you're like, well, how do I come up with ideas? Like, what sort of what can I do as a course? Well, so what Joseph did, right? So he listened to what people were saying. He asked questions like, hey, what are you struggling with? What can help you do better? What are the things that will help you improve, and this and that? He also looked up, Google keywords. He looked up forums. He looked on social media to see what was trending. He looked on, Twitter, Facebook, Amazon, and Quora. Now, so if you look at this approach, right, it's somewhat scientific and it's somewhat data driven, right? So he figures out where the biggest needs are, what people are actually looking for, and he goes in and he tries to solve the problem. Wilson Ho lost my video. Can everyone still see me, or can you not see me? I just saw uh, uh, there is a comment from Wilson Ho that says he lost the video. Can everybody still see me? If you can just put that in the comment section below, that'll be good. Thank you. Okay. So then I will continue. Okay, so then he had to create a course name, right? And okay, so yep. The video is still okay. So Wilson, it might be your internet connection. Thanks, guys. Those who can see me and can see the slides. Okay, fantastic. Okay, most of the viewers can still see me. Wilson, if you're still there, it may be your internet connection. Okay now. Okay, fantastic. Cool. All right. So yeah. So then the question of, well, how do I create a course name, right? So the questions to then ask your target audience, once you know whom your target audience is, well, what are their goals, right? What are they interested in? What do they fear? What are their challenges? What do they believe in? From which culture are they? So these are some of the questions to sort of get the author started on, or the online courses, right? If you're planning to do an online course, then these are some of the questions to then ask your target audience, because you want to know what they want, what they're looking for, and you want to be able to help them achieve and find what they're looking for. So then, creating the course name, right? So communicate the transformation journey, right? Okay, so this one's for the audience, and please feel free to comment one or two in the comment section. Okay, which of these do you find more inspiring and attractive, right? As a title, right, for the course name. Learn woodwork. for one. So if you think learn woodwork is something that you would like to learn, or two, turn old wooden furniture into beautiful and functional pieces of art. Now, which one would appeal to you more? You just put that in the comment section below. One or two, right? I'd be interested to find out. For me, I guess, yep. All right. Raymond goes with two. I would have picked two as well, right? If I had to, because it just sounds like it's somewhat instructive, right? It tells you literally, well, you're turning this old wood furniture and you're turning it into something, right? It's very instructive. It's very specific as well. All right. Wilson says two. Maya says two. Xiaoming says two as well. Yeah, so okay, so this, that there is consensus, right? It's quite KP Chin also too. Yeah, so obviously, so these are some of the tips, right? Alexander says two, right? So to communicate with clarity, and to be very specific, right? As to, so rather than being very generic, hey, learn woodwork, or you learn what you can do with this woodwork and what you can turn that into, like what does the end product look like. Now, so then you obviously you use some power words, right? To sort of to get some curiosity from the potential student, right? From the audience, right? Use words like secret, or surprising, or inspiring, unexpected, shocking, right? These are some of the words that kind of would elicit an emotional reaction, right? Or it would make them more curious. Power words to evoke speed, right? Like like we talk about, well, how 10 marketing hacks, right? How to growth hack, right? So these are hack, tricks, tips, kickstart. So these are some of the words to sort of evoke speed, right? Power words to communicate comprehensiveness, right? Completeness, complete, the ultimate, or the ultimate guide to eating cake, right? The comprehensive book on investments, right? A detailed a detailed look at technical investing, right? So stuff like that, right? So I'm not sure if you can actually see the words. They might be quite the words might be quite small. But these are some of the best-selling courses on Udemy, right? So you've got sales training, practical sales techniques, customer service mastery, delight every customer. Now you can see, although the price of the course is $12, the first one, he's sold 12,050 courses, right, at $12. So yeah, these are some of the top picks, right, on Udemy. So here's the thing. Anyone can teach anything, right? You and I are unique. Everyone who's listening here, we are all unique. We've all been through different stages in life. We've all had different experiences. And as long as you feel that you are sharing your experience with someone, you can go on Udemy and start your own course, right? Okay, so those of you out there, I'm not sure if you've seen this, if you've watched this movie. It's called Catch Me If You Can. Has anyone seen this movie? It stars Leonardo DiCaprio, where he plays this con man who was on the run from the FBI. And while he was on the run, he took on 8 personalities, right? He took on 8 different and this is depicted on a real life person, right? Frank Abagnale. And what's interesting is that at the end of it, he ends up working for the FBI, right? I mean, they caught him eventually. It took them a while. They threw him into jail, but eventually they figured out that he had quite a unique set of skills that he got them to. Well, the FBI needed his unique skill set to help them catch the bad guys, right? So how can I be a guru? I'm not an expert, right? That's usually the what you ask yourself. Well, how am I gonna be? How am I gonna be a guru? I'm not an expert. So according to Frank, now the real life Frank, right? Now he was, he became a physician, he became a lawyer, he became an airline pilot, and a professor. And so to be a professor, Frank said, well, all I had to do was read a chapter ahead so that I could teach the lesson, right? So can you imagine he was pretending to be a professor, right? And then he act. No one, like, he didn't get caught. No one actually realized that he wasn't a real professor, right? Um, and there's a and so Joseph, now the story that I started with, that person. So Joseph's quote is that you don't have to know everything or even be a huge expert. You just have to know more than most people, right? So that's how you become a guru, right? In the online world. uh, so there is also the self doubt, the argument that, well, hang on, I don't know enough, right? There's always somebody out there who knows less than you, right? So uh, there's this person called Paul Bogue, right? He's an international speaker and a user experience design expert, right? So his quote, right? He says that, look, I recommend starting with sharing your personal experiences of projects that you have run, right? By talking about your own experience, you're on safe ground, right? Also, nobody else has had the experience, right? So there's nobody who's better placed to share it. And this is true, right? So um, like I said, all of us are unique. We've all had, we're on different stages in life. We've all had different experiences. So when you share that experience, that is genuine, right? That is truly unique about you. So that's essentially it, right? And that's how you share what you know. Um, Now I'll go a little bit off tangent now, right? Because now, as you know, in future proof, right, we talk a lot about um like I take the theme from this book that I read, and I've mentioned this before, but for the new viewers, it was by the author called Thomas Friedman, and the name of the book is called um, The Lexus and the Olive Tree. I think this was in maybe published in 2000 or 1999, um, where he talks about the three concepts of the democratization of technology, the democratization of information, and the democratization of finance. Right. Even though that book is 20 years old or more, you still see it. You still see that those concepts unraveling itself, right, with the introduction of the internet, right? So when we say the democratization of technology, all of us now have extremely high tech sitting in our pockets, right, or in our handbags, right? So this the computing power on this phone is the equivalent or greater than a supercomputer back in the 80s, right? So that's the democratization of technology, right? So everyone has access to this technology now. Everyone has access to the internet, right? So we're all interconnected no matter where we are in the world. As long as you have a device with internet connection, right? So that's democratized. So everyone now has access to the tech. Then it moves on to then to democratize information. What do I mean by the democratization of information? Now, back in the day, I remember when I was a kid, my dad had, he bought the Britannica encyclopedia, the set of encyclopedia. Now, it was very expensive, and what that meant was information or knowledge was privileged, right? Only if you could have access to these sets of books or the encyclopedia could you then have access to this information. But now, because of the democratization of technology, everyone has a phone, a mobile phone, a smartphone in their pocket. Everybody has access to the internet now. It has now democratized information as well, or the dissemination of this information. So what knowledge that was privileged back then, because of the democratization of technology and information, it is now a commodity. Everyone has access to this information, and what is great about it is that now, like I said, anyone and everyone can actually share their experiences because it is unique to them. and you never know, right? You might actually learn something from another person's experience. So this has then brought about, many changes in society, the way we live our lives, and it has also brought about, many tech companies that have come out and changed lives, literally, right? So then, moving on to the next slide. So the whole concept that by teaching you learn, right? It's called the Feynman technique, right? So essentially, when you teach, you're actually learning, right? Uh, and that is actually very true, right? So that's why, at Equities Tracker, we are, we're very happy to just teach, because every time we teach, we gain insights ourselves, right? So when you teach, you learn. So obviously, at Equities Tracker, we ourselves have been trying to push our education online, right? Since the advent of since COVID happened, and the lockdown and the shutdown, and where the whole world has kind of gone into shutdown. um, you can see an increase in online activity, online learning, and everyone's just stuck at home, right? Their only outlet is to look out the window, right? Maybe read a book, but the internet, right? The internet is kind of their window into the rest of the world. And so when they have access to, they've got extra time on their hands, those who do, and or they're stuck at home and they just want to do something productive for themselves. That's when they can go online and they can learn something of whatever interest now. And the great thing is, right, like now we have 4K, we have 8K videos, we have very high resolution. There are a lot of um, accessible technology that can make that experience so much better for online learning. So at Equities Tracker, this last weekend, we conducted our maiden online course, right, through Zoom. We had over 60 over 60 participants online, and the experience was quite positive, right? It was very positive. And some of the feedback that we got was that although they did it online and it was through Zoom, uh, but it felt like they were in a classroom, right? So now we have the tech to do that. Again, for those of you who are interested to perhaps experience that, we're having an online course this weekend conducted by Benny Lee. If you're interested, just head on over to tcp.equitiestracker.com. All right. And for more information, you can sign up immediately if you'd like to attend. Benny is truly a guru in technical analysis, and he is quite renowned for what he does. Right. So I just took an opportunity to show that. Right. Just yeah, check it out. Okay. Yeah. So so we ourselves have been experimenting with online learning and then online education. Now, obviously, it's quite different, right? So when you're in a face-to-face classroom situation, um, some of the context is different, so the delivery techniques would be different. But then when you're online, well, you got to modify those face-to-face techniques or delivery techniques to to suit um, uh, the context that they're in, right? You're sitting behind a screen, you're not physically there, and so you got to be able to still deliver the learning, right? So here's a video I just want to share. This is from Udemy. I'm just gonna press play, and I hope you can actually hear the sound. Okay, let me know if you can hear the sound.
I have currently over 99,000 students. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. My name's Angela. I teach iOS development on Udemy, and I've been doing it since May 2017. I teach around 3 courses at the moment, but there's a lot more coming. I learned how to code when I was 12. I was playing Space Invaders with my dad. At some point, I just didn't like the way that it was. And my dad was like, well, if you don't like it, you can change it. And he taught me how to code. We built a project together, and I was hooked on programming ever since. On my Twitter profile, I say that I'm not a female programmer, but I'm a programmer who just happens to be female. Inevitably, you come across, various forms of discrimination, but it's not helpful to focus on the things I can't change. I can't change the fact that I'm a woman. I can't change the fact that I'm Asian. And it's far more helpful to think about, hey, maybe I didn't get that job because I didn't prepare enough. Maybe if I beefed up my portfolio, I would be more appealing, I would score higher. And that has really opened up my mind to a new way of thinking about equality, focusing on things that you can change and being a role model, being somebody that young girls and young women can look up to is way more effective.
Okay, so I hope you were able to view that video and hear it. So essentially, that was a video from Udemy, um, and it was about Angela. She's actually one of the top on Udemy for teaching how her courses on how to program for iOS devices. Yep. So it's going to move on to the next slide. There we go. Okay. All right. So here's an interesting thing, right? So there are several hundred, a few hundred instructors on Udemy that actually make 6 figures annually. That's at least 100,000 USD a year, right? Obviously, these are the top guys, right? And according to Udemy CEO, that number is likely to double this year, right? It's likely to double because of the lockdown, right? Everyone's staying home, and for the content creators out there in the courses, they're just gonna create more courses online. So, yeah, so that's pretty interesting. So then, what is Udemy's business model, right? So there are 3 scenarios in Udemy's business model, right? In scenario 1, the instructor brings the students in, and the instructor will keep 97% of the course sold, right? And Udemy earns 3%. In the second scenario, the student will find the course on the Udemy platform. So they could be just browsing, or they're searching for specific courses, how to cook eggs or something, right? And how to cook the best scrambled eggs. And if they find it on the Udemy platform, then Udemy splits that with the instructor 50-50, right? And in the third scenario, which is probably one of the most popular ones, is essentially Udemy will bring the students in, right? They'll do a lot of advertising on Google, YouTube, Facebook, right? On whatever the interest of the person who is in search of something for. And then Udemy takes 3/4 of the course. And so you get the instructor then keeps 1/4 of it. So these are the 3 models that Udemy works on, right? It's kind of small, so I don't know if you can see it, but if you can, these are some of the competitors or alternatives to Udemy, right? So Udemy, then there's Coursera, there's Udacity, Skillshare. There's a whole bunch out there. There's even Masterclass, right? Those of you who have seen that. But they all have slightly different revenue models. But if you look at Udemy's revenue model, don't know if you can see this number here. The revenue is at 325 million, right? As opposed to Coursera, whose revenue is at 170 million, right? So it's almost they're almost double of what Coursera is, right? And the number of employees is at about 1,000, whereas Coursera has about 1,008, right? So and in terms of funding, Udemy has had 220 mil of funding versus almost 500 mil of funding for Coursera. So something to note. Now, why am I talking about doing online courses, and why am I talking about a company like Udemy? Oh, now I think one of the last time I talked about another company that wasn't listed, right? We talked about SpaceX, right? Now that's because um, these startups, right? SpaceX is still kind of a startup. It's not listed, but eventually it will IPO and it will get listed. Is that there are markets for these companies, right? There are investment opportunities for companies like these that are they're not listed yet, but that they will get listed, right? Because they take in a lot of VC money and all that, and eventually what the VCs want is for you, it's usually for these companies to then get listed. So I guess we're looking into these companies because we're looking into the future, right? We're looking to future proof ourselves, future proof our investments, and future proof our portfolios, our investment portfolios. Is this sort of the company that you may potentially look at, or you may take a stake in if if given the opportunity to add Udemy, for example, onto your investment portfolio? Actually, that's an interesting question. So I pose this question out to the audience out there, right? If you had the opportunity and it was presented to you, say, hey, would you would you consider putting some money and investing it into a company like Udemy? Now, remember, this is a non-listed company, which means it's not on any stock market, which means you can't easily sell the shares. And because it's kind of considered startup, even though they're earning 325 million revenue, they may still, go bust. Is that something that you might consider putting into your portfolio? Okay. And so this is just the valuation on how many series of fundings that they've had, right? And how much they have received to date, right? Of course, the latest valuation for Udemy is that it is worth $3 billion, right? So it's definitely a unicorn company times three, right? $3 billion. Right. So these are some of the biggest massive online open online course platforms globally, right? You've got Udemy, you have Coursera, you have edX, you have Masterclass, Pluralsight. And now here's the interesting thing that I want you to kind of just focus on, right? Look at how many courses Udemy has, right? They have 150,000 courses, right? And look at the next closest one. The next closest one is probably Pluralsight, and they have 7,000 plus courses. That's 150,000 versus 7,000. Then look at the number of instructors that Udemy has, right? Udemy has 57,000, right? And I guess the next closest one, again, maybe Pluralsight edX has 5,700. Again, that's almost 10 times, right? It's almost 10. It is 10 times, 10 times more than the next closest one. So they have a lot of courses, a lot of instructors, right? And then so the valuation and stuff. Okay, so who can create courses? Now, here's the interesting thing. So the different platforms work differently. So for example, edX and Coursera, it's the universities, right? The colleges and universities where they would use this to then create the course, right? So they work with the colleges and the universities. Then you have Masterclass, right? Where it's by invite only. It's only the celebrities that that you would pay a subscription fee on Masterclass to then attend these classes. And then you have Udemy, where it's crowdsourced. Basically, anyone and everyone can go onto Udemy and create a course. It kind of feels like the early days of Uber. Anyone and everyone with a car, right, can just download the app and start driving, or Grab, right? But obviously now the rules have matured, they've changed for the better. But sounds like the early days. Now, so obviously, so for Coursera and edX, they have to pay there's a cost for their content. Same for masterclass, but for Udemy, there's $0. They spend their content spend for their courses is zero, right? So it's quite advantageous for them because there's no cost involved in creating content. Okay, and so what do these companies have in common? You have Uber, right, which I mentioned earlier. Airbnb, Facebook, Alibaba, Udemy, YouTube. Essentially, they're all platforms, right? Where it is crowdsourced. You bring your content, you bring your own car, you bring your own apartment, right? You bring your own pictures and whatnot, and you just use the platform, right? It is yours to use. Obviously, the default go-to video thing today, if you want to watch any content or search for anything, you go to YouTube, right? Uber was in Southeast Asia, but they've since left, and they've done a deal with Grab, right? But yeah, when you think of ride sharing, it's Uber or Lyft, right? Like again, it's a platform. You bring your own car. So Facebook, it's nothing but a platform, right? You bring your own everything, your own comments, you upload your own photos and you share it, and all that. So everything is, so Udemy, right, is the same, right? You bring your own courses and you sell it on the platform. So Udemy democratized learning and teaching, right? Not just learning, teaching as well, right? So there's this guy named Daniel Panko, and he was apparently approached by Udemy to invest in, and he rejected them, and obviously now he regrets it. But he says, it was a totally revolutionary concept that someone unaffiliated with a university, right, with a learning institution, could actually teach a course. Like, it was like, huh? It was like a out of the, it's like, how is that even possible? So I talked about the democratization trend, right, or mega trend. So YouTube for publishing, entertainment, Bitcoin, right, again, for electronic payments or electronic money, and Udemy for education and teaching, right? Now think of it this way, right? Thanks to the internet, anyone can be an advertiser. So if you they're probably a bit small, but if you can see this line here, so it's at about 30%. This used to be newspaper spend on advertising, right? So they used to have 30% share of the advertising spend, right? Now it's dropped to about 4%, right, for newspapers. This straight line right up to the moon, shooting up to the moon, that's moved from nothing close to 60%, right? And that's advertising spend. That's the internet advertising spend. So you see how much market share it's gained, right, over time. So what does this mean for EdTech platforms like Udemy? Could we potentially see the same, could we potentially see the same trend happening, right, where universities or institutions of higher learning, you may see the numbers dropping potentially, or not, right? And could we see students piling onto these platforms, going up, right? Or could you see the plateauing of traditional institutions of learning, where they could plateau, and then you've got this thing rising? Now here's the interesting thing, right? If you think about it, the way our entire societal structure is set up, you go to school, you have to sit for exams, because that determines whether you're good at memorizing stuff or not, right? Or whether you've learned what you need to learn. But intelligence can be measured in so many spectrums now, right? It's not just how good you are at math and at memorizing stuff. Intelligence can be measured in so many different spectrums right now. So, but however, in our education, our traditional education system, it only measures you in a very narrow spectrum on what denotes intelligence, and therefore that essentially determines whether or not you get into the university of your choice, and whether you get into the course of your choice. Now, all this scarcity is there because if you think about it, traditional learning institutions are expensive. I mean, can you imagine to build a university, right? It's going to cost a lot of money to maintain it. It's going to cost a lot of money, right? The university grounds is very pristine and nice looking grounds. That's all going to be very expensive, and your lecture hall can only be so big, right? And the effectiveness of the delivery of a lecture can be only so effective. You cannot pile on thousands and tens of thousands of people into the lecture hall. So, due to all these physical limitations, that has essentially formed our societal structure, right? In terms of who goes to what school and does what, and then goes into what courses. But now, with the advent of the internet, right? Well, not the advent anymore, but with the internet and with EdTech platforms like Udemy, people can actually you can actually scale, right? If you think university, you can actually scale that. And early this year, I was just having a chat with a friend of mine in the States, and he was telling me, hey, these days in universities anyway, half the lecture halls are empty because most of the students prefer to just Zoom. They'll just Zoom into their class. So obviously, universities have also continued to keep up with the demand of the students, and also with tech. But if you think about it, look, obviously, there are advantages of going to university physically, right? Because when you go to university, it's not just about learning from the books and all that. It's about learning about life, right? Learning it's like an introduction to adult life, right? Adulthood before you actually experience adulthood, right? You gotta clean your room, you gotta wash your dishes, you gotta cook your own meals, right? That's if you're living on your own. So you gotta be disciplined enough to not just party all the time, and actually pass your exams, and hand in your coursework, hand in your assignments. So university, I suppose the university experience, you can't take the physical aspect out of that, right? But when it comes to just the learning the subject matters, perhaps an online delivery would suffice, right? Look, this is just food for thought, right? Because there were physical limitations before, maybe that was what caused the scarcity in the ability to get that higher education, or that degree. But now with edtech platforms like Udemy, maybe that becomes a reality where physical space is no longer a constraint, right? Where you can actually do that online and you can scale. Okay, so moving on. So since if you can see, right, it was pretty slow growth until so this line here, right? That's kind of when the whole world went in lockdown, right? And then you can see this surge in number of enrollments, and this 400, so 4x roles, 400% surge in enrollment, and also an additional 55% of new courses were created, right? Here's some interesting stats, right? The highest enrollment surges by country since the lockdowns started happening. If you look at Canada, number one is actually stock trading, right? It was up 273%. So that's really interesting. If you look at France, number one is financial trading, right? That's up 223%. If you look at India, number two is financial analysis. Number one is communication skills. So financial analysis, right? That's interesting. In Spain, number three, it was investing, right? It increased by 262%. Again, in Mexico, right, number two is financial analysis, increased by 200%. So, in the States, it's a little bit different. Adobe Illustrator, photography, graphics design, right? So you can. It's quite interesting, right? Of the surge in the courses taken by these different countries. Yeah. Okay. So, what is the long-term potential of EdTech? Okay, so here's the thing, right? So as of today, right, $6 trillion globally is being spent on 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 education, right? On the education, but less than 3%, right, is being spent on digital education, right? So this is interesting. So I guess a lot of it is spent on, I don't know, building libraries. Have really big buildings and whatnot, but less than 3% of that 6 trillion is being spent on digitization. Right? And here's a view of the venture capital, right? Of global edtech venture capital. You can see it rising and rising and rising, right? Now, this might look low, right? But this is just the first half of this year, right? First half of this year, there's been 4.5 billion. So assuming if we extrapolate that out, it should be 9 mil, right? So essentially, it's a growth, right? There's huge growth. What's also interesting, if you look at this graph, is you see the amount that got increased between 2014 to 2015, and how much the venture cap money came from China, right? And you see pretty much being dominated by China, right, in terms of the VC money. Okay, so here's another view of it, right? Now, the average annual cost of the U.S. Residential undergraduate degree, right? So if you went to a public university, you have seen it rise from around 10,000 to about 20,000, right? Would have gone up 100%. If you went to a private university, it would have gone up 4 times, right? Over from the 1980s, right through to now. Then with Coursera, right, which you can actually do a degree equivalent, you would have paid 20,000, right? So that would have been cheaper than even the 4-year course. You would have ended up paying 20,000. Would have been cheaper than even going to a public university, right? So who will be the number one edtech platform? So who are the biggest competitors to Udemy? It's not Coursera. It's probably not Masterclass. Probably not any of the other platforms. I think it could potentially be any of the already established platforms. You have Facebook with 2.7 billion users, right? You have Google, right, where they have 2 billion users, and then you have Microsoft, right? Now they all have edtech potential, right? Microsoft owns LinkedIn, and LinkedIn has this LinkedIn Learning, right? So, and then Google has YouTube, and then Facebook, right? In fact, we are now live streaming this on Facebook. Okay. Well, we're also live streaming it on YouTube. We're also live streaming it on Twitch, right? So so these are some of the biggest competitors to Udemy, right? Okay. So with much lower entry barriers, the size of edtech market should be much larger than higher ed. So higher ed meaning universities, right? So right now, there are about 250 million to 300 million university, right, higher education students, right, and estimated 250 to 300 million over the next 5 years. Then, for Udemy, right now we're at about 40 million, right? Potentially you're gonna see that growth, right? Because it's a much lower barrier to entry. You literally go online, you create an account, and you're good to go, right? So we're in an education crisis, and EdTech will help solve, right? As a platform for gurus, Udemy helps solve the global education crisis. So the World Bank says that we're in the midst of a learning crisis, right? Where 60% of the children are unable to achieve the minimum standards of reading and arithmetic because of poor quality teaching. Um, you know, I suppose in this new world, right, where barriers have been broken down and you have access to technology and internet connection, uh, essentially we choose what we want to learn, right? Because look, seriously, there's information overload right out there. There's so much more information. Um, we choose whom we want to learn from. I'm sure some of you guys remember going to school and not having, not getting along with, certain teachers. You don't like that teacher, or the teacher doesn't like you, so we choose whom we can learn from. And essentially, anyone can be a guru. I mean, uh, uh, through your own experience, right? There's something that you can share, right, with the world. So Nelson Mandela says this, right, and I quote: "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." So two questions. I'm coming to the end of my presentation. Um, do you want to be an online guru? One, put it in the comment section below. And if you had $1,000 today and you were given the opportunity, would you invest in a pre-IPO company like Udemy? Right? If you would, again, put your comments below. I would love to see whether there is appetite for such investments, right? Because the last time we did one on a pre-IPO type company, which was SpaceX, I think we had quite a lot of people who said yes, they would definitely put money in SpaceX if they had the opportunity to. So I'm just wondering whether anyone out there would actually put some money. If they did, right, would you put $1,000 and put that into Udemy? All right, Alexander says yes to both. He wants 100k US a year, and yes to buying Udemy shares. Right, Fauzia, yes, you would. Thanks for commenting, Fauzia. Yes, you would. I'd love to hear more comments, guys. Would you invest in Udemy? Guan Hong says yes, you would. Alicia says yes all the way. Nice one, Alicia. Yeah, so so I guess there is appetite for pre-IPO type companies, pre-IPO type investments. I guess the thing. Jazador says yes, definitely. Thank you. Hong Sing, yes. Interesting. Any no's? I'd be interested if you're gonna put a no. I'd like to know why no, right? Or even why yes, right? Yes, and why yes. Lai He, yes. YH Chung, yes. This is interesting. We're getting a lot of yeses. Would there be any no's? I'd be interested to know why yes, why no. Um, it's interesting, right? I mean, if you were to ask me, I guess I would have a pretty diversified portfolio, right? You'd have a little bit of everything, wouldn't you? Like so. You have some in pre-IPO shares. You'd have some in actual shares. And obviously, I have crypto as well in my portfolio, in my investment portfolio. So you got Balkiet is a yes as well. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for answering. That's interesting. That's interesting to know that amongst the retail investors like yourselves, there's actually appetite for pre-IPO shares. I think Anne Go says depends on the terms and conditions of the investment. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's fair enough. That's a very Alex says buy Bitcoin, buy SpaceX, buy Udemy. Wilson Ho says actually let me just put Wilson Ho says they will be bought up by the big tech companies. Yeah, so I guess that's one play, right? So essentially, a lot of these startups, these tech startups, you create something that's so useful, that is so good, that eventually one of the big guys will just come in and say, "Hey, look, you know what? It's gonna take us too much trouble to figure all this out. I'll just buy you out for this much, right?" And absorb you into it. Back in the '90s, what Microsoft did was they bought up all their competitors and they just shut them down, right? But you can also one of these big tech guys, you can buy them up and actually use the tech, right? Because they built such a great product. And Go says there should be a business plan that sounds credible and quantified. Yeah, I agree. I fully agree, right? Alex says don't forget to buy Litecoin. Well, Litecoin has gone up, I think almost 15% in the last 24 hours. In fact, it's interesting because last week I'm gonna unshare my screen. Last week we covered Litecoin, and I think since last week the price of Litecoin has actually gone up probably 10%. Right, it was about $50 last week, and this today right now I think it's at $55. So if you managed to actually sign up for the tokenized Malaysia and got yourself an account and bought a bit. Actually, wait, I don't know. Yeah, you'd be up 10%. Yeah. Okay, so I guess we're just past 9 o'clock. Look, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you so much for staying right to the very end. Appreciate your attention. And it's refreshing to know that whilst I'm covering these companies where right now how do you even get access to these companies? But there are ways to get access to these pre-IPO companies, right? Obviously, you do it through a fund, right? Because this is quite a highly regulated space as well, especially in the US tech company shares, right? It's quite regulated, and usually they will only allow accredited investors. And when you get into these companies, they usually only open it up to the bigger guys, right? They open it up to funds, family offices, banks, so on and so forth. But yeah, look, I will continue to bring you more and future proof things to sort of help you think a little bit about the future. How do you future proof yourself? How do you future proof your investment? How do you future proof your portfolio? And next week we have a very special guest. He's appeared once before, and we're going to get him to come on again. His name is David Schwartz. He'll be dialing in from Wisconsin, so in the United States. So there's a 15-hour time difference between us. So 8 p.m. here is 7 a.m. his time. So he says, "Hey, can I sleep in a little bit?" I said, "Look, how about you jump on at 8:30?" So I'll start the show at 8 o'clock next week. And by 8:30, he should be up, had his coffee, or will bring his coffee with him, and he'll jump on. And and he'll come in at around 8:30 to talk about the latest game. So for all you gamers out there, there's a game called Lightbringer, Litebringer, Lightbringer. It's a game that registers on the Litecoin network, on the Litecoin blockchain. So it's really interesting. So when you're in games, you can buy stuff and you can, like, I don't know, loot your enemy's bases or whatever, and you take it. All that is actually like in Litecoin. So it's quite interesting. There's thanks Anne. I'm glad people out there appreciate the content. Right, that's fantastic. Thank you, Anne. Appreciate the feedback. Like he says, bit went up because of space and micro. Oh yeah, okay. So Bitcoin. Actually, I think the biggest news yesterday was when PayPal announced that you can now purchase Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin via PayPal, right? So and they're probably doing it, but also because MicroStrategy, as well as so MicroStrategy is a publicly listed company, in the States, as well as the other company called Square. They have both bought to about 400 to 500 million dollars worth of Bitcoin, and added that to their treasury, right? So yeah, look, lots happening right now. It's interesting. The central banks are talking about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. There's so much happening right now. I recently saw a table on how much QE has been done, how much money had been printed in the last 6 months because of this pandemic. We are living in very exciting times. So yeah, look, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for supporting us. And look, those of you who are interested to check out Benny's show on Benny's course this weekend, Benny's class, head on to tcp.equitiestracker.com. It should be worth it. Right? It should be a very interesting one. So thank you again, and have a nice evening, guys. Bye. I'll see you next week.